Today, let's learn about budgeting. Everybody knows that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a very expensive hobby. You can spend a lot of money on the best cards only for those same cards within a span of a year or two not to be that good and also have low value. An example would be the card Forbidden Droplets. 1 year ago, that card was as cheap as $140 per card. So if you wanted a play set, multiplied by 3, you'd be spending $420 for 3 copies of this card. 1 year later though, you can buy 3 copies for a total of $70. As I'm speaking the best cards in the game when taking into consideration the main deck, side deck, and extra deck, you would be spending an estimated average of $400 to play the best deck in the game. When playing Yu-Gi-Oh! You don't have to play the best or newest cards in the game. You don't have to. If you are not interested in playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! You don't have to spend money for overpriced cards. We all know they are overpriced cards. We're aware. People who spend a lot of money for this stuff, they're self-aware. No one is going to force you to pick up the newest best cards. You can make a fairly good casual deck at under $60, and that is somewhat optimized. I split up budget players into 3 categories: 100 and below, 250, and 400. At $100 and below, you can get a core of a deck with a handful of strong power cards. You can make a full powered cubic deck at $20, you can make a Jinzo deck at $30, you can make a Dark Magician or Blue Eyes deck at $50. Now, are you gonna win with these? Most definitely not. You're not. Half of the budget goes into like the power tech cards you kinda need, like Harpy's Feather Duster or some hand traps. At a budget of $250, you can play rogue decks that have some access to strong power cards that high level players play themselves. They're probably playing something of a deck that's tier 2, maybe tier 3. At an estimated budget of $400, your deck is probably the best deck in the format, and it was just released fairly recently. No matter what your budget is, any player could potentially beat any other player. A Blue Eyes White Dragon player at a $100 budget can pull a random win on a $350 Sprite deck. The odds of it are low, but in a game that has a lot of RNG in it, any duelist can pull off a victory. The biggest hurdle for financing yourself in this game is keeping up with formats, and it would be your willingness to spend on staples/power cards. Cards that can be teched into multiple decks can be a major game changer and can separate you from the rest of the pack and also put a couple extra digits into your budget. I'm going to list a couple cards here that you need to consider if you want to upgrade your decks, with a playset of cards that can go to your main deck or side deck. Hand traps would be Ash Blossom, Infinite Impermanence, Effect Veiler, DD Crow, Ghost Ogre, Artifact Lancia, Nibiru, and Cypherm Gamma with Driver. Powerful going second cards would be Lightning Storm, Evenly Match, Forbidden Droplets, Dark Ruler No More, Harpy's Feather Duster, Raigeki, Triple Tactics Talents, Lava Golem, Winged Dragon of Raw Sphere Mode, Kaijus, and Triple Tactics Thrust. Some other cards to consider would be Pot of Prosperity, Solemn Judgment, Solemn Strike, Solemn Warning, Dimensional Barrier, and Anti-Spell Fragrance. I also want to bring up some staple extra deck link monsters that maybe your deck can use. We got Nightmare Griffin, Nightmare Cerberus, Nightmare Phoenix, IP Masquerena, Axis Code Talker, Borolo Dragon, Boro Sword Dragon, and Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax. Now, you don't have to play all these cards. These are staples that you can slot in and out to your decks and that have a lot of versatility for different formats. Staple cards make up the majority portion of your budget. Not all of them are needed, but these cards are prevalent in the competitive scene. One could argue that once you secure these cards, getting all the staples you need, you've stepped over the hurdle of spending big and the game becomes less expensive, overall looking forward and more manageable than what you first started. Now then, the game does continue to be expensive. It is difficult to recognize when to go over your limits, when it is healthy, when it is not healthy. There are people out there who've legitimately chosen plastic cards or cardboard over, paying rent or getting food for themselves to survive for the month. So please understand your budget, what you can get, what you can't get, what is necessary and what isn't necessary. Some staples are affordable, while others are expensive. Some decks like Floowandereeze, Salamangreats, and Pendulum Magicians have had success in the competitive scene while also being just under $200 under its totality if you include the main, side, and extra deck. Get the cards that you need and don't just spend on expensive cards that you won't be using. Unless you are a collector or you enjoy gambling, I recommend buying singles instead of booster boxes or cases. While it is fun to spend $5 in the pack and they get to go pull a $400 card like a Starlight Rare or a Ghost Rare or a Collector Rare. Most of the time, you will be wasting your money. One time I spent $200 on booster boxes only to pull cards that in total was worth less than $100. I lost money and I could have used that extra $100 to buy cards I needed. Please refrain from making these same mistakes and be smarter with your money. At the end of the day, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a card game and only you can decide how you want to enjoy the game. And so that does it for today's lesson. Thank you for tuning in. Feel free to hit like and subscribe if you want to. You totally don't have to want to do so, but really cool if you do. And so hopefully you can do well in today's quiz. And until next time, see you later.
It's quiz time.